Hello and welcome back to 10-Minute English Lessons with Alex. This is episode number 41. Today's video is for our advanced learners. If you are an intermediate learner, don't worry. You will notice that the speed that I speak in this video is a little faster and some of the vocabulary is a little different, but it's still great practice for those intermediate learners as well. In today's video, we have a super duper important topic, and that topic is comparing and contrasting. This is important for the people who plan to immigrate to a new country soon, and there's an English equivalency test. If you're planning on entering university and you have to write a paper or an essay, if you have a business meeting where you have to compare and contrast some type of product or some type of item, or if you're just chatting with your friends and telling them what's the best food here in Canada. All right, guys, without any further ado, let's get over to the classroom and start today's lesson. All right, let's jump right into the video. So today we're going to talk about compare and contrast. This is a very, very useful skill when you are writing a paper for that IELTS test or CELTIC test or TOEIC test, whatever English equivalency test you're taking for immigration, you must prove that you can read, write, and understand in English. One of the main things they ask you to do is write a compare and contrast statement. When you do this, you're showing that you fully do understand about a particular topic. Also, when you're entering a university, you must write some type of compare and contrast statement, maybe about your favorite vacation, your favorite summer holiday, about your favorite food. It's really important to try to use compare and contrast because it shows you have a very deep understanding of what you're writing about and that you can compare two different ideals. The third important thing is if you're having a business meeting and you're talking about two products or two things or maybe three things, when you compare and contrast those objects or items, you're telling about the good points and about the bad points and what's similar about these two or three different items. So it's really good in a business setting to use compare and contrast because you need to give your boss or your coworkers different options, whether good or bad, about different things. And the fourth important point, when you're texting a friend about a delicious food to eat here in Canada, or if you're just having a conversation, we use compare and contrast honestly, daily. Now let's take a look at what compare and contrast means. Basically, when you compare something, you're taking items and looking what is similar or what's the same or are kind of the same about two or three or four different items. When you compare McDonald's and Burger King, they're almost the same. They're both burger restaurants, but then you want to tell me the contrast, which means what's the difference between the two. You're comparing two things that are very similar, McDonald's and Burger King. They both are hamburger restaurants. You're contrasting. You're telling me what's different about these two places. Now, thinking about comparing and contrast for a citizenship or equivalency test when you're immigrating, one of the things that almost all of these tests, TOEIC, IELTS, CELTIC, whatever you're taking, they tend to ask you to compare two ideals. And one of the famous questions they might ask you is to compare and contrast what the current year is now. So for example, right now it's 2022. Compare and contrast what's different or similar to how it was 100 years ago. So you have to compare 2022 to 1922. And the reason they do this is when you compare and contrast two different ideals, you're really showing you have a deep understanding of the topic or whatever you're talking about. This is exactly the same thing if you're doing an entrance exam for a university. You can use the exact same thing. For entering university, they might ask you to compare and contrast your favorite holiday or your favorite meal, your favorite time you spent with your family. They're asking you to tell what's similar about different times and asked you to describe what is different or contrasting about two different times. So as you can see, comparing and contrasting is really, really important. It's important for immigration. It's important for entering university. It's definitely important for your job when you're trying to talk to your boss or coworkers. And it's really important when you're just talking to your friends. All right, next, let's look at some of those transitional signal words to let the reader or let the listener know that you are about to compare and contrast different items. And if you're not familiar with the word transitional signal words, basically, these are just words that let you know that I'm about to compare something or I'm about to contrast something. And these words are similarly, however, unlike, both and, likewise, on the other hand, whereas, not only but also, just as, while, although, neither nor. These are all great transitional signal words that you can use to show or to tell someone that you're about to compare and contrast different subjects or different topics. Okay, next, I'm going to show you two boxes on the screen. On the left, that box will show things that are similar. So basically, you're putting the transitional signal words that are comparing things, so showing things that are similar. On the right, you will put those transitional signal words which are showing differences or contrasting meaning. So the one on the left, you have to put the comparing words or the words that are showing when two things are similar to each other. And on the right, you have to put those transitional signal words that are contrasting things, showing what are differences between subjects and topics. All right, let's give it a shot. All right, let's see how you did. So first we're going to look at the box on the left, which is showing things that are comparing or things that are similar. So you would have similarly, both and, likewise, not only, but also, just as, neither nor. How did you guys do it? And of course, what's left would go on the right side. However, unlike, on the other hand, whereas, while, although. So it's really important when you're trying to compare and contrast two topics or two ideas to someone that you remember these transitional words. Those transitional words on the left is showing what are similar about two ideas. The transitional words on the right are showing what's different about those ideas. So when you're looking at these transitional words, I can say things like McDonald's and Burger King have similar French fries. They taste almost the same. I'm comparing two things that are very similar. And for that last one, neither nor, I can say McDonald's does not serve rice, nor does Burger King. Well, actually, it depends on where you are in the world, because if you go to some places in Asia, actually McDonald's does have rice. So you see how I'm doing this here. When I'm trying to compare things and trying to show what's similar, I use those transitional words on the left. But when I'm trying to contrast or show what's different about things, I'm using those contrast words on the right. This might take a little practice getting used to, but I promise if you can do this, it will help you for immigrating. It will help you for your university life. It will help you at work. It will help you in your everyday life, just talking to friends. Comparing and contrasting is so important. Even for you people who love shopping, when you go shopping and you're comparing and contrasting sweaters or pants or watches or whatever you want to do or buy when you're shopping, comparing and contrasting is really important. All right, next I want you to practice. So I'm going to give you a couple sentences. There will be blank spaces in the sentence that you have to fill in with a compare transitional signal word or a contrast transitional signal word. Now, I know a lot of people might think, well, Alex, a lot of these phrases can fit in these blank spots. No, they can't, because you have to look at the grammar when putting these phrases in. For example, the first sentence, blank are New York and Tokyo largest cities. Blank they are, blank great places to visit. Now, when you're using these transitional signal words, these comparing and contrast, there's only one phrase that would actually fit in these blanks. And let me show you what I mean. So, for example, if I said, similarly, are New York and Tokyo large cities, similarly does not fit there. Grammatically, it's wrong, and it sounds bad. Or, both are New York and Tokyo large cities. Both are? That does not fit. Grammatically, it's wrong, and it doesn't sound right. There's only one word that will fit in these blanks. And the second sentence, blank coal, blank oil are seen as good long-term options for providing clean and safe energy. So what I want you to do, take a piece of paper and pencil, and I want you to try to fill out which transitional signal word goes in which blank. After you finish, come back and I'll give you the correct answer. All right, let's see how you did. So number one, not only are New York and Tokyo large cities, but they are also great places to visit. Did you get that one right? All right, let's take a look at the second one. Neither coal nor oil are seen as good long-term options for providing clean and safe energy. Did you get them both right? All right, guys, now that you're a little bit more familiar with transitional signal words, the comparing and contrast, I want to give you some listening practice. I will give you an essay that is written for either entrance exam for immigration, or you can actually use this for a school entrance exam when entering university. So this is really great writing practice as well as really great listening practice. All right, so if you would like, grab a piece of paper and a pencil, and whenever you hear or whenever you see a transitional word, I want you to write that down. So maybe just write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and whenever you hear that transitional word, just write it down. And at the end, I want to see how many transitional words you actually heard. Latin culture makes up one of the largest cultural zones in Europe. Two of the more well-known and often compared Latin countries in Europe are Spain and Italy. These two countries have a number of cultural similarities and also some notable cultural differences. Firstly, both countries share Latin roots. Their languages are similar, and because of the similar climates, geography, and historical influences, their cuisine are much alike. Spanish and Italian are both part of the Romance or Latin family of languages, which means that many of the words in these languages are very similar. For example, the Spanish word for a female friend is amiga, while in Latin it is amica. Likewise, the Spanish word for water is agua, and in Italian it's acqua. Not only are Spain and Italy similar in terms of language, but their foods are also quite alike. Perhaps the most famous dish from Spain is paella, which is based on rice, and similarly, Italy is famous for its rice dish, which is known as risotto. Just as both countries enjoy eating rice, they also enjoy consuming cured hams. Spanish jamón and Italian prosciutto are both justifiably famous around the world. Despite being similar in terms of language and food, Spain and Italy differ somewhat in terms of cultural habits. Meal times in Italy are more similar to those found in English-speaking countries. That is, lunch is usually no later than 1 p.m., and dinner is no later than 7 p.m. In contrast, the Spanish prefer to eat later, with lunch typically starting at 2 p.m. and dinner as late as 9 p.m. Another way these two countries differ is with names. In Spain, it is common for people to have as many as 4 names. 2 surnames taken for both their mother and their father, a first name, and a middle name. Conversely, Italians now usually have only a first name and a surname, with the traditional middle name having fallen out of favor. In fact, Italian law now only allows parents to give their children a maximum of 3 names. In conclusion, Spain and Italy are countries that may seem as being very alike, but if you look beneath the surface, you will likely see some clear cultural differences. Spain and Italy share a common linguistics heritage and enjoy similar cuisines, but they differ in terms of dining habits and naming conventions. Regardless of the similarities and differences, a trip to either country is sure to be very rewarding. Alright guys, how did you do? Now, for the listening part of this video, it's really important to go back and listen a couple times so you get to hear the intonation in my voice, you get to hear the accent of the word. It really will help with your conversation when talking to friends. Alright, how many transitional signal words did you hear? Did you hear 5, 6, 7, 8? The answer is 8. Let's go over the words that you heard. The first one you heard was likewise. Number 2 was not only, but also. Number 3, similarly. Number 4, just as both, they also. Number 5, despite. Number 6, in contrast. Number 7, another way, differ. And number 8, conversely. Now this essay here would be a perfect example when you're writing something for a TOEIC test, an IELTS test, or CELTIC test, some type of immigration test. This would also be a really great essay that you can use for that entrance exam essay, because it shows that you have a full understanding and you are very clear on the topic because you're able to compare and contrast. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Until the next time I see you, aloha.